I want to start with a scenario, one that I think is going to probably haunt a few people listening.
Oh, boy.
It's the green dashboard paradox. You know the drill. You're running a project, right? A massive software migration, maybe a new feature.
Yep, all systems go.
All systems go. The sprint metrics look incredible. Velocity is up 10%. Code coverage is amazing. You delivered exactly what was in the requirement stock, right down to the last letter.
You checked every single box.
Every box. And you walk into that stakeholder review expecting, a victory lap. And the stakeholder just looks at the demo, pauses, and says,
Okay, technically this is what I asked for.
but this doesn't actually solve our problem.
Ugh. It is the corporate equivalent of operation successful, patient died. You hit every single output metric, but the outcome is 0.
Exactly. And it is absolutely soul-crushing. You did the work, you followed the rules, but the value just wasn't there. It feels like we're stuck in this loop of optimizing for busy, not, optimizing for useful.
Yeah.
So today we're going to unpack why that happens, and I think more importantly, how to stop it. We've got some really interesting new thinking here.
We're looking at the AI Agile Manifesto, specifically their value 3, and we're analyzing a discussion from the AI Agile Forum. I think it was day 21 of their series, hosted by Jawahar Prabhu and Naga Saisri.
And just to set the stage, this isn't your standard Agile advice, right? This isn't stand up during meetings. These guys are talking about a really fundamental shift in ownership.
Right.
The core conflict we're digging into today is this battle between, on one side, fixed contracts and one-sided control, and on the other, co-creation with all stakeholders.
Which, sounds great on paper.
Yeah.
But in the real world, fixed contracts are the security blanket of the whole industry. It's how budgets get approved. It's how agencies get paid.
It is.
Moving away from that is, frankly, terrifying for a lot of organizations.
It gives me anxiety just thinking about it. A contract is safety. It says, I promised X, I delivered X, now pay me. If we start blurring those lines, don't we just end up with, endless scope creep and chaos?
And that is exactly the tension they're exploring.
Right.
They argue that the safety of that fixed contract, it's an illusion. It protects the transaction, sure, but it completely endangers the value.
Okay.
Their point is, if you stick to that rigid defensive posture in the age of AI, you're just going to produce obsolete work, only faster.
So the idea is we need to move from enforcing a plan to co-creating value. But let's be real, co-creation is a buzzword. It gets thrown around in every kickoff meeting. We want to partner with you.
Always.
Then 2 weeks later, it's, why isn't this ticket done? What makes this perspective any different?
The difference is how they integrate intelligence and ethics into the actual workflow, not just, sticking it on a mission statement, and specifically how AI forces that transparency.
Okay.
But let's start with the problem they identify in what they call post-15, which is this trap of output-driven agility.
Right, and Naga Saisri makes a pretty sharp observation here. Teams can be incredibly busy.
Totally swamped.
High activity, commits flying in, JIRA tickets are just moving across the board like Petrus blocks. But the clarity on the actual impact remains, low.
And they have this great distinction. They distinguish between delivering to a stakeholder versus creating with a stakeholder.
Delivering to, that feels like the vendor mindset. Like, here is your widget, the invoice is in the mail.
Precisely. When you deliver to someone, you're just fulfilling an order based on a snapshot of the past.
Mm-hmm.
The requirements were written 3 months ago. The market's changed since then.
Right.
User needs have shifted.
Of course.
So if you just deliver the order, you're often delivering something that is already dead on arrival.
But hold on a second. The counter argument here is that the stakeholder signed off on that snapshot. If I build exactly what they asked for and it fails, isn't that on them? Why is that my problem as a delivery team?
That is the fixed contract mindset talking.
Yeah.
And legally, sure, maybe you're in the clear, but professionally, you failed. Jawahar points out that reality keeps changing, but contracts, they stay frozen. If you stick to that frozen contract while reality moves on, you are engaging in what I like to call zombie work.
Zombie work, I like that. Walking Dead features.
Exactly. You are building things that everyone knows, deep down they aren't quite right anymore, but nobody wants to be the one to stop the train and renegotiate the contract. It's just waste.
Right.
And the AI Agile Manifesto argues that in an era where AI can accelerate development so drastically, accelerating zombie work is a disaster. You're just digging the hole faster.
Okay, so if we want to stop digging, we have to embrace this co-creation idea. But let's get specific. This can't just be talking more. How do the sources actually define this?
They define co-creation as defining outcomes together and then revisiting them continuously. It transforms agility from a system of enforcement, did you check the box, to a system of shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility. Okay, I have to play devil's advocate. In a big enterprise, people have job descriptions for a reason. If I'm a developer and I start taking shared responsibility for the business outcome, am I not just doing the product owner's job for them?
I see what you're saying.
If everyone is responsible, doesn't that mean nobody is responsible?
That's the classic fear. But think of it this way. It's not about blurring the roles. It's about aligning the intelligence. And this brings us right to post 16 in their discussion. Outcomes without intelligence.
Which sounds like a very polite way of saying dumb goals.
It's not about IQ, though. It's about context. The source defines intelligence here as context plus foresight. They talk about how teams often optimize locally.
Okay, give me a technical example, and please, not a car analogy, a real software example.
Okay, fair enough. Let's say you're a developer. You're tasked with improving page load speed. That's your outcome. So you go in, you strip out a bunch of bloat code, you hit the metric page loads in 200 milliseconds. Success. But you stripped out the tracking pixels that the marketing team uses to measure conversion.
Ouch. So the site is fast, but marketing is flying completely blind.
Right. You optimized locally. You hit your goal. But the intelligence, the context that marketing needs these pixels to survive, that was missing. Co-creation means the marketing stakeholder and the developer are defining the outcome together before any code is touched. So the goal isn't just speed. The goal is speed that preserves data integrity.
So intelligence in this context is really about foresight. It's knowing that pulling a lever over here is going to drop a piano on someone's head over there.
Exactly. And the source argues that without this shared intelligence, hitting your goals can actually be harmful. The intelligence gap is what kills projects. Co-creation closes that gap because you have all those downstream perspectives in the room while the solution is being designed.
But this takes more time, doesn't it? It's definitely slower to have that whole conversation than it is to just strip the code and close the ticket.
In the short term, yes, of course.
Yeah.
But the rework costs of fixing that marketing data later are, 10 times higher? And this connects directly to the ethics conversation they have in post 17 and post 20.
Okay.
The source argues that prioritizing speed over this kind of intelligent co-creation, it silently erodes trust.
A silent killer.
Yeah, it creates a culture where nobody wants to raise the red flag. If the mandate from the top is just move fast, deliver output, then when a developer sees a potential privacy issue or a security vulnerability that might take 3 days to fix, they stay quiet.
They don't want to be the bottleneck.
Nobody does.
And the source mentions that trust breaks before the metrics show it. That's a really scary thought for leadership. Your dashboard is all green, but your team knows the product is basically a ticking time bomb.
And that's why they say ethics cannot be delegated.
Right.
Leaders have to own it. It reminds me of the andon cord in the Toyota production system.
Oh, the cord that any worker could pull to stop the entire assembly line.
Right. If you saw a defect, you pulled the cord. The line stopped. It was expensive, but it prevented bad cars from ever leaving the factory. In software, we rarely have an andon cord.
Not at all.
The source says leaders need to create a safe environment where anyone can say, stop, this isn't ethical, or stop, this outcome is unintelligent.
But realistically, if I pull that cord in a crunch week, I'm the bad guy. I'm the one delaying the release.
Which is why the source emphasizes this shift has to come from leadership. If the leader doesn't explicitly value intelligence over speed, the team will default to speed every single time. It's just human nature.
Okay. We have the problem, output obsession. We have the mindset shift, co-creation. But this is the AI Agile Manifesto. Up until now, we could have been talking about regular old Agile from 2010.
True.
Where does the tech come in? Because usually when people talk about AI and coding, they just mean, Copilot wrote my boilerplate.
This is maybe the most critical part of their discussion, and it's in post 18. The source flips the script. They don't frame AI as just a content generator. They frame AI as a tool for visibility.
Visibility versus opacity. Okay, let's dig into that. Because usually software development is a total black box to stakeholders. They put requirements in one end and they just wait for the demo at the other.
Right. And discussions are almost always opinion-based. A developer says, this code is messy, we need to refactor. The stakeholder just hears, I want to waste time making it pretty. It's a subjective argument.
So how does AI change that?
The source suggests using AI to turn that opinion into shared evidence. Imagine an AI agent that doesn't just write code, but it analyzes the entire repository in real time. It actually maps code complexity against business risk.
Okay, paint me a picture. I'm in a meeting. What am I looking at on the screen?
So instead of a developer just complaining about technical debt, imagine a dashboard, and it's powered by an AI that says, attention, the module for user login has undergone 40% churn in the last 2 sprints. And historically, every time we touch this module, customer support tickets spike by 15%.
Wow. Okay. That is not an opinion. That's a correlation.
Exactly. It changes the conversation completely. It's no longer the developer's lazy or the stakeholder's pushy. It's, here's the evidence. The AI is showing us this area is high risk. What do we want to do about it together?
That forces the co-creation we were just talking about. You can't just ignore data like that.
You can't. It moves the conflict from my ego versus your ego to us versus the data. The AI provides the intelligence, that context and pattern recognition that humans might miss or just forget.
It makes the impact of the work visible while the work is happening.
Yes, not 3 months later when the bugs are all reported.
So the AI acts almost like a neutral third-party arbitrator.
It creates algorithmic transparency. If you are building a feature that introduces bias or breaks accessibility standards, an AI agent can flag that immediately. It turns ethics from a philosophical debate into a tangible alert on the dashboard.
But there's a trap here too, isn't there? Post 19 warns about volume. Because if I have an AI that can write code and an AI that can test code, my boss is just going to say, great, do 5 times as much work.
The volume warning, yes. The source specifically notes that high-volume delivery often creates noise rather than value, and it leads to team exhaustion and, for stakeholders, just confusion.
It's the paradox of plenty. Just because you can generate 100 features doesn't mean you should.
Right. If you deliver 100 mediocre features, you haven't added value. You've added maintenance costs, documentation debt, user friction. The source argues we need to use AI to filter the noise, not amplify it.
So use AI to find the signal.
Find the signal, the right thing to build, rather than just building the wrong things faster.
Okay, let's bring this down to the ground level. We have listeners who are Scrum Masters, product owners, tech leads. They're going into work tomorrow. They can't just overhaul the entire corporate culture overnight. Based on the source material, what are the practical day one moves?
Jawahar and Naga offer a few really concrete pivots. First one is for the product owners and stakeholders. Stop freezing success criteria up front.
Meaning, stop treating the requirement stock like it's a religious text.
Yes, be okay with the definition of success changing. Frame your roadmap as a hypothesis rather than a promise. It sounds subtle, but it completely changes the psychological contract.
We are exploring how to solve X, not we will deliver Y on Tuesday.
You got it.
Okay. What about for the technical leads?
Lean into that AI visibility. Don't wait for some dedicated audit phase. Start implementing tools that surface risks continuously. If you can show a stakeholder a heat map of risk generated by an AI, you totally change the negotiation leverage. You're bringing data to a knife fight.
And there was a specific note for Scrum Masters that I found really, really validating.
Yes. Naga Saisri mentions that for roles like Scrum Masters, this means stopping the management of handoffs and starting the enablement of partnerships.
So, traffic cop versus bridge builder.
Exactly. A lot of Scrum Masters get stuck just moving tickets from column A to column B. Did you pass this to QA? Did QA pass this to staging? The source says, stop that. Your job is to get the developer and the QA and the stakeholder in the same room or the same chat to co-create the solution.
Stop managing the transactions. Start enabling the partnership.
That's the whole game.
That's a huge shift. It's moving from process enforcement to value enablement.
It elevates the role entirely.
So to wrap this up, we started with that nightmare scenario of the perfect delivery that nobody actually wanted. We saw how rigid contracts and an obsession with output create zombie work.
Right.
Then we learned that the antidote is co-creation, which isn't just, holding hands, but it's using intelligence to see the downstream effects. And finally, we saw how AI is the real game changer here, not by writing more code, but by providing the shared evidence that forces honest, data-driven conversations.
That is a solid summary. It's about moving from, I control this project, to we are co-creating this value supported by the truth the AI is showing us.
And the source leaves us with the challenge. Where can control be replaced by co-creation in your work today? Is there a meeting where you're just reporting status, where you could instead be asking, what is the evidence telling us about the value we're actually delivering?
It's the question that separates the feature factories from the real innovators.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with one more thought. It's something that struck me while we were talking about the AI dashboard, the one that shows the truth about code quality and user impact.
Okay, let's hear it.
If AI eventually makes all impact and ethics visible in real time, I mean, if the data shows us exactly what's working, what's broken, and who is being affected, does the traditional role of a manager even exist to supervise people anymore?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Think about it. If I don't need a manager to ask me what's the status because the AI already knows, then the manager's only job is to interpret the truth that the AI is showing us.
So it shifts management from supervision, just watching people work, to wisdom, deciding what the work actually means.
Supervision versus wisdom, I think I know which business I'd rather be in.
Absolutely. The future belongs to the interpreters, not the supervisors.
That's all we have time for today on The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening, and go co-create something smart.